Hello, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Hey there, everyone. Today we'll be continuing on our My Thoughts on My Team series. And for the second consecutive episode, we have someone pinch hitting who actually doesn't like this team, but there aren't fans of the Washington Commanders out there. And with their ownership, it's no surprise. Today, as I said, taking care of the Washington Commanders, we have Tyler Moore. Tyler, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, love to be on there, and it'll be fun talking about this team, I guess.
I don't know if fun's the word I would use to describe it, but I appreciate your fake attempt at enthusiasm. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into what I'm sure is going to be a painful roster. There we go. Transition. There we go. Just like I meant to do it. All right. As you can see, I broke out the new graphics today and the backgrounds and all that, so I'm still working on blending them together rather seamlessly. We're improving. All right, these rosters were provided. I copied and pasted them from ESPN, so I don't necessarily agree with all the people they have as the starters and backups, but in this case, it's most of the quarterback breakdowns are pretty straightforward. Not this one. This appears to be a wide open competition between second-year, one-game starter Sam Howell out of North Carolina and journeyman backup Jacoby Brissett. Personally, I think Sam Howell has some upside, and I would really like to see him win this job because I own numerous shares of said upside. But it would not surprise me the least if Jacoby Brissett ended up being the week one starter. What are your thoughts on this splendid duel of superstar quarterbacks?
Yeah, superstar is one way to put it for sure. Whoever's starting has a pretty good supporting cast that we'll get to here in a minute. But I hope Sam Howell is the starter here. I think he provides the most excitement out of this team. Jacoby Brissett, we've seen him. He's kind of a journeyman guy. That's just a bridge guy that, can spot start you for a year, same way he's done at multiple different locations at this point. But we know what he is. He's a Jag. He's a, spot starter. That's about it. He's a really good backup to have on your team. Sam Howell is the most exciting guy, and I want to see him. And I think the team will also be, willing to put him out there, see what they really got before they go into the next year's draft.
Yeah, if I own the weapons, more specifically the receivers on this team, I'm not sure who I want to win. Jacoby Brissett is probably the safe play in fantasy. Like he's your low end wide receiver, low end quarterback too. Sam Howell, I don't know what he could be. He only made one start last year, and I think if I remember correctly, put up 21 or 22 points. So I think Sam Howell definitely has the potential to be there.
He does, and I really liked his college tape. I broke him down last year in some of my rookie threads, and I really liked him. And then, this is kind of why I started doing the quarterbacks after the draft, which is what I'll be doing this year, because I really liked Sam Howell. I really liked Matt Corral, and I thought they were both, really good quarterbacks. I'm not a quarterback guru, so I won't claim to be one, but I was really surprised when they fell to where they did last year.
You're telling me I've learned this the hard way. Got my little sheets, here's write up on this guy that I really love, going to be a huge breakout, going to be undervalued, falls to the 6th round, crumple that sheet up. Well, shit, right. He's useless. Like you said, it's like, really wish I had waited. Instead of writing up 10 of these sleepers, I should have waited till after the draft, and then I would have just had 4 sleepers, but the draft does that. Like I said,
sure
I think as far as long-term, I would love to see Sam Howell get a chance here and produce. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he has it, but I think they at least have to take a shot. And I feel like it's going to be his job to lose from week one.
I think so. And if he sucks, then I think that's good for the Commanders, honestly, because then you're in a prime position to take a quarterback where they weren't in a good position to be one of those trade-up candidates this year. They'd be giving up a mountain of assets just to move up into a quarterback range. And, we saw them content to pass on Will Levis and Hendon Hooker as well.
Yeah. Moving on to one of the more confusing running back rooms in the league, Brian Robinson, who I really liked coming into the draft last year before he was shot and missed the first 6 games. Antonio Gibson, another guy that I really loved. The Commanders don't share the love for Antonio Gibson that I do. They seem to hate him. Jared Patterson, I don't know what to make of him. I don't think he's ever going to be a thing. And Jonathan Williams, seen a little play. I also included the rookie Chris Rodriguez, but I should have included JD McKissick because at some point he's going to come out of retirement and ruin anything Antonio Gibson could ever produce. But
that's he already did that basically last year when he went to the Bills and then came back, and everyone is upset
it's just a
about
ploy
that.
to get you excited about Gibson again. But I think this one's going to shake out as Brian Robinson's the early down runner and Gibson's more of the pass down guy. He was originally a wide receiver. It would make sense. I don't know. I like both of these running backs equally. So a timeshare kind of makes sense. It's going to limit both of their ceilings, but I don't know. I think they're both RB2s at best, probably RB3s more likely, inconsistent. Brian Robinson, I think, has the higher ceiling. I think he's going to see more touches, but I'm still thinking top 20 is probably out of his range of outcomes.
Yeah, I think you're basically just hoping an injury from one of the other, backs here. I mean, of course, we're never hoping for injury for these guys, but, I think that's your best case scenario if you own Antonio Gibson. Then the only way that he's really fantasy relevant outside of just a flex start, on bye weeks and stuff is if Brian Robinson goes down. I didn't share the same love for Brian Robinson. I'm an Alabama alumni, and I didn't even like him coming out.
No?
Oh, no, I didn't. Honestly, I thought he was just a lumbering 2-down back, and that's kind of been what we've seen so far. He gets the touches, but he gets 20 carries and gives you 94 yards, and you're praying for a touchdown. So that's kind of where I feel like he's going to slot in this year as well. I think Chris Rodriguez, the newly drafted guy, is an interesting ad because I think he profiles more as the Brian Robinson type, where he's more of a 2-down bruiser, but I liked his profile. He was very productive at Kentucky, but he had some issues this year, DUI. I think he was suspended from the team for a couple games. But I mean, he's very productive when he was on the field. He was basically their offense at times. So interesting guy to keep an eye on, but I mean, rookie drafts, anything like that, I mean, you're waiting on him. Maybe he's a waiver ad, but there's just as good of a chance that he's a special teamers than anything.
This backfield is a mess is what my end conclusion is. Even if Brian Robinson goes down to injury, McKissick's going to come out of retirement just to rain on our Gibson parade. He hates Gibson. So.
And they'll pull someone up. One of these guys, Jonathan Williams, Chris Rodriguez, to fill his role, and then Gibson's still in the same role because we know the Commanders hate Gibson for some reason. So, I mean, I like Gibson in this backfield. As you can get him super late in startups now. I think he's just a dart throw kind of guy that you're hoping maybe they trade him, maybe they move him. You're just fingers crossed something happens.
Moving on to a much more impressive group, the wide receivers, at least the top end. They have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson with Curtis Samuel as the starters, De'Ami Brown and Dax Milne as the backups. I don't know. The one obviously your McLaurin and Dotson, I think, are your highest end. They're both probably wide receiver 2s. Excuse me. Curtis Samuel is going to have some boom or bust weeks, obviously. The one I'm intrigued with that I'd like to add in last rounds or even wait and add on waivers, De'Ami Brown. I know he sucks. I know he's done nothing. He was Sam Howell's college roommate at UNC. There's got to be something there. I just want to hold on. They were great together at UNC. I think maybe he's not completely dead yet, and I could see him sneaking in and usurping Curtis Samuel as the wide receiver 3. Probably still not a whole lot of value, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Curtis Samuel battle injuries quite often, so I mean that's definitely even a possibility there, but. Yeah, I mean the UNC connection's fun, but I just don't see it. Even if he gets on the field, he's running wind sprints out there, like he's not getting anything else out of that offense. So I love Terry McLaurin, I love Jahan Dotson. Both of their talents I think are great, and unfortunately being wasted on the Commanders.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think I prefer Dotson at cost over McLaurin. McLaurin seems to be the wide receiver 2. every year finishes 15 to 20, even lower, something more. It's more like 18 to 20 every year, but is
Mhm.
always valued as a top like 12 to 14 guy. He's just everyone values him like he's a low end wide receiver one, and he's really a low end wide receiver two.
Yeah, I think he's valued that way for a lot of people, but you try to sell him at those prices and you don't get that. There's no one's moving or no one's trying to acquire Terry McLaurin on their teams. You can maybe put him in some trades and try to get some value that way, but for the most part, like, you know, he's valued way higher than anyone's willing to trade for him for.
Moving on to whatever the hell this mess is. How did these guys not draft a tight end? The tight end room consists of Logan Thomas, who's like 33 coming off 2 years of injuries and was originally a quarterback, followed up by John Bates and Cole Turner. I don't know what the hell that is. How did they not draft a tight end? I thought for sure when they came up at 15, they were taking Kincaid or Mayer.
Yeah, I didn't even honestly. I thought Logan Thomas is out of the league at this point.
He's played 3 games in 3 years?
Yeah. He's a guy that battles injury. I wouldn't even like consider him on the team. He might give you a spot start for the Commanders, not your fantasy team. Like he might be on the field 1 or 2 games this year. We'll see. But Cole Turner is interesting. He's a guy that had a pretty good profile coming out of college. We know tight ends take a little while to develop. He's a guy I like to stash. I think I have him on a couple rosters, but
he was drafted last year.
Yeah, drafted last year. I think he was a day 2 guy if I remember right. Let me see. He was drafted.
I feel like 3rd round, 4th round. I think 3rd or 4th. I would say.
Yeah, could be wrong. See. He was drafted. Oh, in the 5th round. Okay. A little bit later than I thought he was. I mean, he's an interesting guy just because we know he doesn't suck. And yeah, Logan Thomas had his time. He was,
trying to think, why wouldn't Gesicki go here? I'm trying to think if there were any other free agent tight ends. Are there any still left on the board? There's got to be someone these guys can add. These guys suck.
Yeah, I don't know. It's rough. Gesicki would have been a fun choice there. I think he probably realized what a trash
dumpster fire this is.
Yeah, not like the Patriots are in much better of a situation, but
yeah,
it's still surprising they didn't add anything here. They really didn't touch offense at all. Even in the draft, they went
Chris Rodriguez. That's it, right? Rodriguez
was their only
6th round or something, 6th or 7th. Yeah, so that's all they did. They loaded up on defense.
Yeah, defense and offensive line, which were 2 needs of theirs as well. But I mean, man, give Sam Howell something to work with here. Yeah, it's a barren wasteland here.
All right, yeah. I know you're not a psychic and won't know what their ADP is going to be, but your best guess on where you think these guys fall. Which is a player on the team you're likely to be targeting come redraft season? At what their expected cost will be. Most of them will be cheap with the exception of the 2 receivers.
Yeah, so in redraft, I don't play a lot of redraft, mostly dynasty now, but I got some home leagues that are kind of like my token redraft leagues that I
Me too. That's all I have for redraft or home or family or work leagues. Everything else is dynasty or Devi.
Exactly. But Sam Howell's a guy I think I would be pretty interested in. Once we get some fall camps and by redraft season, we'll have a little bit better of an idea of how likely he is to have that stranglehold on the starting job. But generally in redraft leagues, if I can't get my hands on like one of the top quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes or, Jalen Hurts coming up this year, if I can't get my hands on one of them, then I generally wait and kind of stack up on like maybe 2-3 quarterbacks at the very back end, usually just 2 guys that, I have pretty good hopes that will have a pretty high ceiling. Sam Howell kind of fits that where I think he has a pretty high ceiling. He's a rushing threat that a lot of people don't realize. He had close to 1,000 rushing yards his senior season at UNC, adjusted for sacks. So he brings a lot with his legs as well. And we've seen in his, one start that he was pretty effective there.
Yeah, he's actually someone I own a fair bit of I shouldn't say a fair bit. I have a few shares of in Superflex Dynasty just because he was so cheap with a last round pick. Yeah. The other side, who would you be avoiding at what you expect to be their current cost?
Well, that one's kind of hard because I feel like none of these have high costs.
I think it's McLaurin though. Like I said,
That's
every
what I was
year
about
he
to
goes
say.
as wide receiver 12 or 15 off the board and finishes as wide receiver 20 or 24. So I think
Yeah,
he's the only one with a really high cost who's not going to live up to it, I think.
I think so too. And I think in redraft, a lot of the times people value safety when they get into those middle rounds too, and they're not really taking upside. So I think that pushes Terry McLaurin's cost up a good bit. And if we hear good reports about Sam Howell in the offseason, that could definitely drive his price up into that borderline wide receiver 1 territory, where I just would much rather take someone with a little bit more upside in that range, or even, pivot to another position.
Do you see a sleeper on here? I think the only one who I seen with any potential would be an injury replacement if Chris Rodriguez manages to find his way into the lineup. I guess technically Howell would be a sleeper. He's going off the
Yeah.
board as what, like QB 30, 31?
Probably. I think he's probably the best bet to gain significant value and be like a legitimate starter for your team. Dynasty again, I like Gibson still, but without injury around him or him getting moved somewhere, then you're kind of just hoping for a change of scenery there. Which I mean that happens a lot of places. So there's a lot of talented backs out there that you're just hoping for a change of scenery.
All righty. And I got rid of my graphic. Of course I did. I'm going to have to bring it up on my own screen. Okay, last year they finished 9th in the NFC, going 8-1. Where do you see them finishing in their own division, and do they win more than 8 games? I would say last and less than 8 games.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair guess there. I mean, they're in a loaded division here. The Giants, they have a really good up-and-coming roster with a really good defense. The Cowboys are all around a good team, even though they can't, finish out the season very well. And then, the Eagles are, runners up to the Super Bowl. That I don't see Washington being able to compete with those teams right now. And, barring
it's going to be a long year.
Barring a massive jump from Sam Howell, I don't see them winning more than 8 games either.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Tyler. You want to take one more shot to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Tyler_FF_. I do my weekly prospect threads during the off season. So those are all coming out. And then of course, me and Aaron both write for KingFantasySports.com, and we do all of our rookie profiles and everything are dropping right now with all the post-draft analysis and what we think of those landing spots.
I'm trying to think of who else. Oh, I had Iggy on here. You're the second King Fantasy Sports guy I've had on the podcast who I've never spoken to face to face. And for the second time, I'm amazed that you're not like British. It's a UK base, so I naturally assumed you guys are all from the UK. And then like, oh no, Iggy's from Colorado. Where are you from?
I'm from originally Alabama, but I live in Atlanta now.
Okay, so yeah, not the UK.
Not the UK. I think you picked the 2 guys that are not from the UK, actually.
Yeah, so I was like, I was expecting a British guy, but not in this case. So, all right. Well, thank you again for joining me. It was wonderful having you and finally seeing each other face to face.
Yeah, loved it. Anytime. I enjoyed the podcast.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This has been my thoughts on my team, even though this wasn't his team. This was the Washington Commanders with Tyler Moore. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Mad Science Lab podcast. I can't even get my own show correct. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.